Welcome to today's episode of True to Form with your host, President and co-founder of Crystal Clear, highly regarded speaker, and two-time Inc. 500 entrepreneur, Tim Sawyer. True to Form is a podcast that highlights leaders making headway in the aesthetic, anti-aging, and elective medical industry. Learn from the experts to discover the secrets of success and pitfalls to avoid when growing all aspects of your elective medical practice. This week's episode is brought to you by Candela, a leading US-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications, including hair removal, wrinkle reduction, tattoo removal, women's health treatments, facial resurfacing, traumatic and surgical scar treatments, body contouring, improving the skin's appearance through the treatment of benign vascular and pigmented lesions, and the treatment of acne, leg veins, and cellulite. Please join me in welcoming your host, the authentic, the transparent, Tim Sawyer.
Hello, welcome to True to Form, the podcast that connects you to the people, technology, and hot topics that shape the elective medical community. Brought to you by Crystal Clear and this week's sponsor, Candela, the leading US-based medical aesthetic device company. I'm your host, Tim Sawyer. To our returning guests, welcome back. To our first-time listeners, we appreciate you joining us and encourage you to become a subscriber in our community of more than 13,000 unique listeners. We just crested the mark. In the last episode, we spoke with leading healthcare attorney Brad Adato, who dived into the most common compliance mistakes practice owners are making today. If you missed it, you got to check it out. And we've got a special treat, as always. We've got a good friend and someone who's visiting us for the second time on the program. We're grateful to have him. Dr. Malcmacher is the founder of the American Academy of Facial Aesthetics, maintains a cosmetic and general practice in Bay Village, Ohio. He is an internationally recognized lecturer and author, known for his entertaining and comprehensive teaching style. He has vast experience in total facial aesthetics and has taught tens of thousands of healthcare professionals in the areas of smile design aesthetics and facial injectable therapy. Dr. M is also Master of the Academy of General Dentistry, Fellow of the International Association of Dental Facial Aesthetics, and a Fellow of the World Clinic Laser Institute, and a visiting lecturer at a number of universities. Dr. Malcmacher, welcome back to the program.
Hey, thank you very much, Tim. It's so nice to be with you again.
I am so happy that you're here today because you are truly a beacon of light and hope in what for many has become somewhat of a dark time. And seriously, you've got a little bit of a different viewpoint on this because unlike a lot of people, AAFE is actually back doing live treatments. Is that correct? Tell us about them.
Yeah, we are back, and actually they do call me a bright light, but we'll save that for another time. But we are back. I mean, that's what we do is injectable live patient training, all kinds of levels, our entire curriculum, and we have now been back for a few months. As soon as offices were allowed to reopen, we started back on our live patient training, and with obviously all the new standards and CDC guidelines, and because our live patient trainings pretty much run just like people treat their patients in the office, so it's just we go to the exact same standard. So it's really been incredible, and I think it surprised nearly everybody that is in the facial aesthetic arena, whether it's a med spa, a dentist, a physician, nurse practitioner, a PA that has an aesthetic practice, how readily patients have come right back to their their practices. And I think we're all glad to be on this side of reopening, but it's really been much better than I think anybody could have possibly imagined for all that. And we see that also reflected now in people, in professionals coming for live patient training, whether it's foundational, whether they're getting into it for the first time, or whether it is advanced training, because, people are wanting services, and there are a lot of reasons for that.
Yeah, and, you and I talked the other day that there's great news coming out of the filler companies, the Botox folks. You see huge volume in that, right now?
I mean, right now it is, like I said, it's just been incredible. You ask most aesthetic providers, again, no matter what kind of professional they are, what kind of office they have, and they have been absolutely slammed with patients. I mean, I know a number of offices that have tried to limit the amount of new patients, but they're getting calls and calls. It's a different world, and there's no question that some of it has to do with the fact that when we initially came back to our offices, reopened again, we weren't seeing as many patients during the day because we figured, we're getting used to a new system, getting used to new guidelines. But now that we're used to it, so now many practices are seeing almost the same number of patients that they have a day, and they are booked up for weeks. And what's interesting is, and so this is consumer driven, and then I'll get to the injectable companies from our discussions with them. But, what we then see is we've seen it's not been just the patients that, where everyone was shut down for 3 months. So they've been waiting for their Botox and, for their fillers, for whatever services they were going to have. It's right. A ton of new patients. And I think that's what surprised everybody. Then you get that pull through. Well, if my offices are busy, then they are ordering more neurotoxins, more fillers. I mean, they're ordering all those. And I think when you talk to the injectable companies, they are also, I mean, nothing less than super surprised at the demand that we've seen. These have been some of the biggest and strongest months in the last few months when it comes to injectable sales.
Unbelievable. Now, I was curious about something, because you've got a big association, thousands of members, and a large percentage of those, not all, but a large percentage of those are dentists. Now, how did the dentists fare April, May, June? Were they considered essential depending on the type of work that they were doing, and how did that impact what they were doing in the aesthetic side of it?
So they were not considered essential in the fact that they could be open, just for all treatment all the time in terms of dentistry. And dentistry and med spas, it's amazing. Those kinds of practices are very, very similar because, if you consider, even before COVID and even to today, that, approximately 70% of the services provided in a dental office are elective services. Obviously in a medical spa, it'll be 100% are elective services, but 70% is a huge chunk. So, from that perspective, dentistry was not an essential, and they were closed down. They were allowed to see emergency patients and patients that were coming in for pain, infection, those kinds of things. But I think most dentists were very much limiting their services to just getting patients out of pain for all of that. But they were essentially shut down for a good 3 months for all of that. So that's how it worked in dentistry.
And the other question I had, so have you seen, we're just starting to emerge from this. So the typical member, whether they're a med spa owner or they've got a dentist, they're a dentist and they're looking to add med spa services. How has this whole time period impacted new folks coming to AAFE and saying, hey, I want to get into this? Has that started to pick up, or what's the impact of that?
Yeah, again, I think it's just been huge, and there are a few reasons for that. Number one, as and it's funny, as dental offices started reopening back up, so those dental offices that were doing injectables, many of them, I know many of our AAFE members like that, only restarted their practices doing injectables, because in dentistry, obviously, there's a lot of aerosols, there's a lot of high-speed drilling, and that was, nobody knew, really, people didn't really know how to negotiate that just yet for all of that. So they started off doing injectables, and then they saw they were really busy. So I think that opened a lot of dentists' eyes that were thinking about getting into injectables for a while, and said, I really got to start doing this. And then I think on the medical side, on the physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, we've seen a huge increase in that as well. I mean, our courses have been full, and we've actually added locations in the coming months for this. But on the medical side, I think physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, PAs, I think a lot of them, and this, we saw this happening a few years ago, but I think that it is very possible that post-COVID, this has pushed people even more so. Like it was a very stressful time if you were a medical provider, and they're looking to still stay in medicine or nursing, but maybe something that's a little less stressful than working at the hospital and seeing patients that are sick all the time and that kind of thing. So I think that actually accelerated that. I mean, we're getting calls left and right now from physicians and nurses who really are, they don't want a career change outside of medicine, but they really want to look at a discipline that might be a little easier for them to handle, that's a little less stressful, at least part-time, or going into full-time, or seeing what the possibilities are. So I think from both sides, we have seen this really, really start to accelerate. And then again, they see, they see or they know their friends who are nurses or nurse practitioners that may have a med spa, and they're saying, well, you guys may have been shut down for a little while, but you're coming back to a completely, different kind of medicine than what we're used to, and without all the stress that we have. Now, the medical spas, dental offices have different kinds of stresses, but certainly, we are seeing an influx of that in the same way that we're seeing an influx of new patients coming into the office there too, and there's lots of reasons for that.
And for those folks who are, like you said, I think there's a lot of, there's going to be some life evaluating going on for a lot of people. Tell us a little bit about, so whether you're a dentist that's thinking about adding aesthetic services, or a nurse, like you said, nurse practitioner, PA, that's a little bit looking to make a change. What's the path that you guys take them down? And can you talk about some of the resources that you offer at AAFE to help those people in that transition? Because it can be a little intimidating, I imagine.
Yeah, and absolutely correct. It can be really intimidating for that, like any kind of a change. So, and it's good that you split it up, because there are different, there are different levels of this. So let's stick with dentists. For dentists, it's actually easier because they've got an existing practice. They have got, like I said, a lot of dentistry already is elective. They're used to talking to patients about paying without insurance, and doing whitening and porcelain veneers and implants. So there's a lot of aspects where for a dentist, the transition can be a lot easier, because this is literally just adding another service to their office and another elective aesthetic service to their office, where they already are set up with everything else. They just need to learn this new skill and then have some guidance as to how to market it. When it comes to physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, this may be a complete change from an insurance-based practice, from, working for a hospital as opposed now to trying to work for yourself. So we have a lot of resources. We have mentoring for a lot of those professionals. So we really have different things for different people, but what we really have, and this is where the AAFE shines and is so much different than any other program like this out there, is that we, first of all, have certification courses, because so many of the programs offered out there are not certification courses for neurotoxins, for fillers, for PDO threads, which are really such an up-and-coming injectable right now. And that really helps you with your regulatory boards, that helps you with liability insurance, helps you with all of that. And we've got a level 1, a level 2, a level 3, and then master's courses and specialty courses in eyes and lips and different kinds of things like that. So it's a real curriculum that people go through. But I think the shining star of the AAFE really is the resources that we have. I mean, the support that we have. I mean, we have got a team. We have a really a special team that only helps people get started, and really kind of drags them by the nose and says, okay, now that you've got trained, you need to do this, you need to get this. We want you doing, after one of our live patient trainings, we want them treating patients within the first few days, because we know that is how they will be the most successful. We've got a whole team that's dedicated just to doing that, in addition to our 50+ faculty that are just always available, and we've got our own forum community, our own member forums, and that's a tremendous resource. People can pose questions, case presentations. In other words, the way we're really different than everybody else is we don't train you and then leave you on your own. And you know, if you need help, you'll run to YouTube, and God only knows what you'll find there. We are literally there every step of the way, and different professionals need different mentoring and different role models, whether, again, it's physicians, nurses, nurse practitioners, or dental professionals. So we've got, our faculty is made up of everybody. So we can literally, we are really dedicated to everybody's success, because the clinical part you can learn, and we're, you know, certainly that's almost easier than the practice management part. And that's where Crystal Clear really comes in. All the resources that you give these kinds of practices and helping them market and be successful and run their practices, you know, that is almost, if not as much difficult for a lot of people as the clinical part is.
It is. And you said something, and sometimes I hear some scuttlebutt in the community, and I want you to address it because I'm glad to have you. How do you respond to folks who say that there aren't any true certification programs? Who needs that? What is, because to me that seems a little not right. And also, there's a lot of benefits associated with getting those certifications. Can you talk about that?
Right, absolutely. And so this is, and I don't know why, and I think this is to the detriment and why aesthetic medicine has had probably the most difficult time getting the kind of recognition from the rest of the medical community that it's a real, I mean, it's real. I mean, it's a real discipline in medicine. And I think we've come a long way in that. And I think part of that was initially everybody thought that, oh, if you're going to, you know, just get into Botox, you're just going to be squirting Botox into everybody. It's not real medicine. You know, and it's really, it really was looked down upon for a very long time, but we've seen it really come into a real discipline. So like any medical discipline, but still for some reason, even today, like any medical discipline, there are real certification courses, there's real training courses, there are courses that have a real curriculum, there are courses that are recognized by the medical and medical nursing, you know, dental, you know, licensing boards across the country that are recognizable to them, that there's a real path. There was a real path. There was a foundation. There was advanced training and that kind of thing. Somehow, this still exists to a large part in aesthetic medicine, and I think to its detriment is, you know, I don't know, like physicians, nurses, dentists think, well, I'm just going to go learn it from Joe down the street. You know, they've got a lot of Instagram followers. You know, they don't have any real CME. They don't have a real curriculum. They've got maybe a good personality and some followers on Instagram. That must be okay. I mean, there is not a week that goes by because the AAFE is a real resource to, again, all the licensing boards, and we've dealt with most of them in medicine and dentistry, where we get an email and you know, there's been a patient complaint on a provider that automatically triggers with a medical, dental, or nursing board an investigation. And then the first question they ask somebody if there is a complaint about a neurotoxin or a filler or anything else, that may or may not be the provider's fault, but that's irrelevant. Patient complains, they've got to investigate. The first question they'll ask a physician, dentist, nurse is, well, you know, okay, you're given Botox. Where did you go ahead and get trained? Well, you know, I met Sally on Instagram, and I went to her office, or she came to my office to train me. And like, I mean, they've even told me that it's ridiculous. I mean, they laugh at that. That's not anything anybody can point to that is real training, like any other discipline in medicine, right? Or nursing or dentistry. That's where real certification comes in. So it's a fallacy to think for any medical professional that, no, yeah, you know, anyone can learn to do Botox. It's like nothing else. It's become a real discipline. And certainly
Yeah.
Those of us that have been in it for a long time, and really, I think anybody that has a med spa, anybody that wants to deliver this ethically and morally and wants to do a great job for patients, recognizes the fact that they need a real certification training that they can show to their patients, and that's great for proving your worth to your patient.
Yeah,
right. Just great from a marketing perspective, or just from a qualification perspective. But also, I mean, God forbid anybody ever gets called into a regulatory board. You need someone behind you, and we certainly go to back for our attendees and for our members, because if anybody ever calls us and say well, can you give us a copy of their certification? What's the curriculum they took? We have that all, whereas other people will not have that, and that is your case is pretty much done with if the first question they ask you, and that's always the first question, is where'd you learn to do this? And
right.
You've got nothing behind you other than this person on Instagram trained me, and that's it. Yeah, you're finished. I mean, you are now behind the 8 ball, and they will take sanctions against you and do all kinds of things, saying you never really had training. How are you providing these services? There is not another area of medicine, nursing, or dentistry where there's this kind of Wild West approach by professionals saying, I could, imagine if someone said, yeah, I learned breast augmentations from the guy down the street. That's, I mean, it would be absurd, right? I mean, I learned heart surgery from,
right.
I watched a couple of YouTube videos and I learned how to do it. I mean, it's absurd, but aesthetic medicine's a real discipline now, and I think most of the people listening would really agree with that.
Yeah, and I think, and I'm constantly talking with people who are trying to put projects together, and I'm thinking about it really on my own too, is it feels to me like, and AAFE essentially does this, right, is you've got to provide, there's got to be a uniform set of standards or universal principles that we need to apply to the whole industry, because if not, then overregulation is guaranteed, right? So it seems like to me what AAFE is doing is a proactive approach to what we don't want government to do, is to say, and now you have to do X, Y, and Z. And if I was a provider, I would find great comfort in the fact that knowing if I had a problem, I could say, hey, listen, I did these 3 things, and I trained with this organization, and this is their reputation, and I'd feel pretty good about that. So anybody who's listening, guys, not that we want to turn this into a commercial for AAFE, but it is a great idea, to make sure that you've got the appropriate training and education. So that, by the way, not just in the event of a problem, but obviously that's a big issue, but also use it in your marketing and on the website, and it's a differentiator for yourself. So I think it's really good what you're doing. And then the other question I had is, I know you've got this really cool program. We worked on it for a little bit. And for listeners who went and enjoyed and would love to hear about them, have you given much more thought to your world-class training, business training in the MBA programs?
Sure. Well, let me just go back one more thing on the certification part. We actually were one of the first ones to put together a facial aesthetics curriculum for medicine and for dentistry. And we put it out to all of the regulatory boards probably about 10, 11 years ago, and we update it every couple of years. We're about to start the next round of updating it now, especially with COVID and that kind of thing, just to beef up some of the newer standards associated with that. So, I mean, you're right. A real curriculum has been missing from this, but we've been working on it now with regulatory boards for many, many years for all of that. So, I mean, we appreciate everybody's support. I mean, real certification is really important, and there's a legal liability too. I mean, there's no question about that. So, but as we kind of mentioned before, the practice management part and the business part is a big issue because everybody wants to build a practice. Some people are coming in fresh from a hospital environment, or they've never had their own practice before. But even those that have their own practice really want to go ahead and try to transition and really try to build that as the aesthetic part of their practice. And that's why we started, and you guys have been very involved, and we appreciate the partnership there, the MedSpa Business Academy. And then obviously COVID hit, and it's very hard to go ahead and put 50, 100 people into a room they're going to sit for a day or two of lectures for all of that. So yes, we have had, we were blessed because we actually started on, while everybody was scrambling now to start virtual and on-demand training, we've been doing on-demand training in the AAFE since 2014. So we've been pretty much way ahead of the pack. And we have an on-demand MedSpa Business Academy training that is fully on-demand, but we are also now going to start doing some live virtual courses there as well, and kind of doing a blend. Everyone talks about a blend of education now, but and I think we're reworking some things right now to get that back up and running. I mean, because unfortunately, we've seen, and certainly you've seen this too, Tim, with Crystal Clear and what's going on in the industry, in the med spa industry. Like any industry, those businesses that were not well run, those med spas or dental offices that were not well run, some of them did not survive a shutdown of 3 months. And those that are well run, or at least had made an attempt to really put together a business plan, put some thought into how they go ahead in their systems and processes, they've survived, and at this point they're really thriving for all of that. So we're gonna kind of rework the Med Spa Business Academy right now and be able to make it much more accessible, because it's hard to go to a physical location right now, and that may be the case for the next 6 to 12 months also. So we're definitely going to bring it. We're going to bring it to you or make it much more readily accessible to everybody. But you've got to have that interactive training. And that's why our live virtual sessions, I think, are going to be very interactive. And we really want to give back to this medical and dental community that is really into aesthetics. So it is going to be for really just a nominal fee to really get into this, because we want to make our sessions available to really everybody. So that's what it'll become.
Listening, I don't want to lose the moment while I have you. For those who are listening, what's the best way, if they're interested in looking at some of the live trainings, where can they go to find that information? And
they can go to make it really easy, they can go to aafetraining.com. So aafetraining.com will make it really easy to go out to our website. It's a lot easier than spelling facialaesthetics.org, but that will take them straight there, and then they can see all the different options that we have, whether it's foundational or whether it's advanced, master, specialty courses. I mean, all the different things that we have.
You have courses going on in August?
What? I'm sorry?
You have courses going on in August?
We've got 3 to 5 locations going on every single week. I mean, this week we're going to be in Chicago, in Cleveland, in Portland, and I think in Las Vegas. So I mean, we're pretty much back to our full schedule. I mean, unless there's a breakout here or there and something gets shut down at the last second, we are pretty much back to our full schedule.
That's amazing. And I tell you what, as we wind down, you have, I meant what I said at the beginning, you have been a source of light and inspiration, and to say that you have unbridled enthusiasm would be an understatement. And I always know when I'm feeling down where to go to get my fix of, we're going to kill it together. And you've been that guy, and you can tell in your organization, man, you've got a really nice business that you've been building for a long time, and you guys have been innovating all along. Like you said, 2014, you were out in front, and bringing credibility and universal standards to our industry. You're filling a big gap, and I know people are grateful for that. And I encourage folks to look into the training. That I can't believe you had that many going on. It's absolutely unbelievable. Now, before we let you go, is there anything else that you have to add that you're excited about over the next couple of weeks and months?
I am really excited about what we call the Zoom boom, and that is, the fact, and that's really something really that I think that's the thing that really amazed all of us, was the patients have been, consumers have been looking at themselves, and again, they're going to be doing this for the next, we don't know how long, but you can imagine 6 to 12 months. People are meeting by Zoom. They're looking, and it's funny when you go to a Zoom meeting. I don't know about you, Tim, but a lot of people, when they go to a Zoom meeting and they turn on their video and they're watching everybody, most of the time they're looking at themselves.
100%.
Right, and so many people have decided they don't like what they see, and that is why we're seeing this huge influx of people coming in. And it's an interesting thing. I was just talking to somebody before about this as well. We've been locked down, we've been shut down. Vacations are scarce now. People are saving money, and they do have, not everybody, obviously, a lot of people are hurting, but those that do have some elective dollars that they would normally spend on vacations or on this or on that, they're now looking to spend it on themselves. And I think that is what we call the Zoom boom. And patients are coming in, new patients, current patients, they're coming in for more and more services. It's amazing. They can hide behind a mask. We hear this from patients all the time. I'm happy to get work on my lower face because I'm going to be wearing a mask. If I'm bruised for a little bit, that's okay, because they're wearing a mask. It's incredible how this has all happened. So, because of that, and we see that now aesthetics really is a sustaining industry in difficult times, certainly in good times. Listen, since the 2008 recession, it's been nothing but up and away for injectables, neurotoxins, fillers, and PDO threads. And I think this is going to continue for a good while. I think all the injectable companies that do tons of research on this, they certainly see that this market is going to grow substantially over the next few years. We thought it would take a major hit with COVID and everything that's happened, but it's been an incredible experience, and I think it's just going to only get better over time. So now is the time to get into this. I mean, certainly those people who have been waiting for a long time to get into this, now is exactly the right time to get into this.
Amen. Dr. Malcmacher, we really appreciate you joining us today. I know our listeners always appreciate your feedback and your enthusiasm and the great work that you're doing at AAFE. Guys, I encourage you to check it out. I want to thank everyone for listening today. For those of you who are interested in learning more about AAFE, you've got the website. For those of you interested in learning more about Crystal Clear, you can go to crystalcleardm.com. That's crystalcleardm.com. You can check out our exciting promotions, or you can get involved for as little as $0, free website in the calendar month of August. So go to the website and check it out. Dr. Malcmacher, thanks again for joining us today, and we'll catch up with you soon.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of True to Form, brought to you by Candela, a leading U.S.-based global medical aesthetic device company, engineering technology that enables practices to provide advanced solutions for a broad range of medical aesthetic applications. To learn more about this week's podcast sponsor, visit candelamedical.com. And to learn more about your podcast provider, Crystal Clear, visit crystalcleardm.com. Be sure to subscribe to the show on all your favorite music apps, including iTunes, Spotify, SoundCloud, and tune in to stay up to date with the newest episodes. Thank you for listening.